The US is ready to surrender Ukraine. A loud warning from one of the most important people in Trump's life. Zelensky is under pressure, and Putin is confident of victory. The hunt is on. Russia names the commander of Ukraine's unmanned aerial systems as its new target. He responds to Moscow with Bulgakov's words. Details. Belarusians protest, where and why? A general's high-profile resignation. Scandal over the man who served with Kuchma, Yanukovych, and Yushchenko in the Ukrainian army. The West failed to warn. The former head of Ukraine's foreign ministry claims that Europe knew about the impending war but kept silent. Why? And when Kuleba himself takes up arms, an unexpected response. The president makes concessions, an attempted mutiny, the arrest of soldiers, and the opening fire of armies on the border. And also about pardons in Uzbekistan. A review of world events right now, watch it all. Hello everyone, this is Vremya Pryadko, short, clear, and to the point about what the world is talking about. We need your support right now. Please like and share this video on your social media pages, and I'll get started. Belarusians have come out to protest, not en masse and not in Belarus, but in Vilnius. Several dozen people staged a rally outside the Belarusian embassy, the main slogan being, "No to hybrid attacks on Lithuania." The protest was sparked by Lithuania's recent claims that Minsk violated its airspace with weather balloons carrying contraband. Belarusians in Vilnius brought white balloons to the embassy gates. The protest was organized by the office of Belarusian opposition leader Tikhanovskaya. Tikhanovskaya herself stated that the protest was an expression of support for Lithuania and a call for collective action against pressure from Lukashenko. Russia has declared war on the commander of the unmanned systems forces of Ukraine. Robert Magyar Brovdi has been placed on the international wanted list. The Russian investigative committee has named him as the prime suspect in the death of a Channel 1 journalist who was fatally wounded in the Kursk region. The Ukrainian Armed Forces major is slated for arrest and punishment, according to an official statement. In March, he gave a knowingly criminal order to remotely mine terrain and roads in the Kursk region. Subsequently, a car carrying Russian citizens was blown up, including Channel 1 war correspondent Prokofieva, who died from her injuries. Brovdi has been placed on the international wanted list, and the investigation is in its final stages. Brovdi has already responded to the Russian investigative committee with lines from Bulgakov's novel, The Master and Margarita. Robert Magyar Brovdi, commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces of Ukraine. Considering his 69 life sentences for Nalavaki, and the results of the counting rhyme, the geography of his movements will add a colorful impression. But remember, you cheeks, in your swamp language, so familiar to you, Anushka has already spilled the oil. Europe knew that war on Ukrainian territory was inevitable. But it remained silent. This was stated by former Ukrainian Foreign Minister Kuleba. Intelligence reported to EU leaders about the inevitability of military action. The German Chancellor was also informed. According to Kuleba, the head of the German government was asked to inform the people about the war that would begin in Ukraine. However, the Chancellor decided not to worry or frighten the population and allegedly believed that diplomacy would prevail, Kuleba asserts. The former Ukrainian Foreign Minister also stated that he was ready to fight for his homeland and go into the trenches, but so far the summons has not arrived. Dmytro Kuleba, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine: "If the summons comes, I will not flee abroad. And today, I repeat, I did not volunteer because I spent 2.5 years dealing with the war. But I won't run away to avoid mobilization when that time comes, either." In Ukraine, an army general was urgently dismissed without explanation. By decision of the commander of the Territorial Defense Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, General Kuzmak was dismissed from his position as an adjunct advisor. He was the same Kuzmak who served as defense minister under President Kuchma and as an adjunct advisor to Yanukovych and Yushchenko. Under Kuzmak, in the spring of 2000, due to an error during military exercises, a Tochka-U missile crashed into a residential building in the Kiev region, killing people. He was one of the defense ministers under whom Ukraine's defense capability was degraded, according to an expert report presented at a meeting of the Verkhovna Rada's Temporary Investigative Commission in November 2018. This time, the general's name and photo appeared in the news. On December 6, Ukrainian Army Day, Kuchma presented awards to military personnel in the Territorial Defense Forces. Photos from the ceremony were posted on social media, sparking a furious reaction among Ukrainians. People were outraged. How could Kuchma have ended up back in the military, and as a wedding general at that? It turns out the former minister had found a good position in the Territorial Defense Forces back in the fall of 2022. Who signed the appointment decree remains a mystery. The name was redacted in the published documents. Attack for attack. Russia and Ukraine are claiming parallel attacks on dams in the Kharkiv and Donetsk regions, the goal being an attempt to disrupt the offensive and complicate troop logistics. Z-blogger Yuri Podolyaka, who is under Ukrainian sanctions and accused by the SBU of treason, writes about what the Russian armed forces are achieving with their attacks on the Pechenik Dam. Yuri Podolyaka, Z-blogger. Moreover, the destruction of the road, which we achieved, is not as important as the destruction of the locks. Their destruction could allow us to deprive the Ukrainian armed forces of a significant portion of their supply lines for at least the next 5 days, until the water recedes and a properly functioning pontoon bridge can be erected. Ukraine claims it was prepared for attacks and that these are not the first attacks on this facility in the Kharkiv region. The dam has already been hit by air-to-air missiles, drones, and various types of missiles, according to the Ukrainian armed forces, who assure that Ukrainian troops are prepared for critical damage to the structure. Response plans are already in place, and alternate routes for the military have also been developed. Secondly, Ukrainian units have accumulated the necessary supplies. Therefore, the potential temporary loss of movement across the dam will not have a critical impact on the conduct of military operations. And thirdly, if necessary, the Ukrainian defense forces are ready to restore the crossing as quickly as possible. For this, there are specialized engineering assets and specialists who are already working according to proven plans. Ukraine is striking back, but this time at the dam in Provolia, and is publishing footage of the attack. The Deep State Monitoring Channel reports on this. The Guardian writes the following. The 30th Separate Mechanized Brigade publishes footage of the dam being blown up in Privoli to halt the enemy advance. Further on, the Vasyukivka River flows into the Bakhmutka River. The pond's water intake is unlikely to have a significant impact, but what is happening along the Privoli-Bandana-Vasyukivka line is an open question. The United States is ready to surrender Ukraine. A dirty deal with Russia is at stake. This is how. The Guardian writes about the current negotiations between Washington and Moscow. In this case, there is only one way out, rescue from Europe, but will Europe want this? The authors of the article ask. The article states that Europe theoretically possesses sufficient economic and military power to support Ukraine and weaken Russia. It also mentions frozen Russian assets. If they are transferred to Ukraine, Kiev will be able to continue to resist Moscow until 2027. If Europe can provide sufficient military and economic support to Ukraine and simultaneously exert economic pressure on Russia, then at some point in 2026 or 2027 Putin's incentive structure will change. The generals will tell him, we're not making any progress, and the central bank will tell him, the economy is crumbling. Then a ceasefire along the current front line will become more likely. The publication goes on to say, and then quote, it's difficult to imagine a formal peace treaty that both Putin and Zelensky could sign, but a long-term truce is a very real prospect. And if Trump again cuts off supplies to American intelligence, trying to blackmail Ukraine into accepting a capitulation peace, it will be a serious blow, but Ukrainian and European intelligence are already capable of partially closing these gaps, The Guardian clarifies. The Kremlin is now even talking about frozen Russian assets. Dmitry Peskov, Putin's press secretary, the Belgians are quite sensibly saying, listen, we will have both national responsibility and personal responsibility, personal and legal, for these steps. Give us guarantees. No one wants to share responsibility with them, but they really want the money. This money, the ones they're talking about are, in principle, enough to waste Ukrainians like bullets for another couple of years. Finland, Russia's neighbor, has acknowledged a mistake. The mistake they say is that Europe spent decades trying. Currently on duty at major intersections in the city. The coup attempt occurred as Benin prepares for presidential elections next spring, Reuters reports, which could end the rule of President Talon, who has been in power since 2016. Faced with this situation, the Benin armed forces and their leadership, true to their oath, remained Republican. Their actions allowed them to maintain control of the situation and thwart the coup attempt. Therefore, the government is calling on the population to continue their normal activities. The military opened fire on the border. An evacuation has been announced. There is gunfire on the border with Cambodia. This was reported by the Thai Foreign Ministry. They claim the shootout was provoked by Cambodian troops, forcing Thailand to respond in self-defense. 2 service members were wounded in the clash, the Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs noted. The fighting lasted for about half an hour, but Bangkok is warning of a possible resumption and escalation of the conflict. Consequently, an order was issued for the immediate evacuation of civilians from border areas of 4 provinces. As a reminder, the main cause of border tension between Thailand and Cambodia remains a long-standing territorial dispute over 2 ancient temple complexes, Phra Vihir and Tom On Tom. Although the International Court of Justice recognized Phra Vihir as Cambodian territory in 1962, this decision did not end the conflict. Large-scale pardons in Uzbekistan. In honor of Constitution Day, which Uzbekistan celebrates on December 8. Of various crimes. The presidential decree has already been published, stating that those who have sincerely repented of their actions and, quote further, have resolutely embarked on the path of correction have been pardoned. 220 convicted individuals have been fully released from prison, 123 will be released on parole, and 97 prisoners have had their sentences commuted.